Good morning, Year 4. Just to do our next part of our book. So we're on chapter 8 now, Frozen in Fear. If you remember what happened yesterday was Eric had sneaked out to the zoo late at night when he should have been in bed to check on Gertrude, who was really worried about her in case there was an air raid again, which turned out to be an air raid again whilst he was there. So he's trying to get some raisins because apparently they're Gertrude's second favourite food after bananas, and that's the only thing they think they're going to be able to get their hands on. So he's trying to get some raisins to calm her down whilst in the middle of an air raid. So that's not ideal. So, Frozen in Fear. The Nazi bombs were landing nearer and nearer to the zoo all the time. Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. Eric had been to the zoo so many times that even in the dark he knew his way around. In no time at all he'd found a snack bar, climbed up to a dustbin and forced a side window open. Next he slid down inside and fumbled in the darkness to find a jumbo bag of raisins. Tempted though he was to take some sweets for himself, he resisted. Then using a chair as a stepladder he climbed up and out through the window and leapt down onto a dustbin. Clang. Eric glanced at the bag of raisins. There was a tear in it. He must have caught it on the little hook of the window frame. The boy did his best to stop the raisins falling out as he ran back to the gorilla's cage. Bombs dropping all around. Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. I got the raisins, Uncle Sid, he called out breathlessly from running. The gorilla was still rocking and covering her ears, letting out a sad cry. Have you been eating them? Asked Sid, feeling that the bag was quite light. No, the bag got ripped and I dropped some on the way. A likely story. It's true. The old man turned his attention to the gorilla. Now, Gertrude, come on, old girl. Your friend has a nice juicy raisin for you. Eric took one of the little treats out of the bag and pushed it through the metal bars. Kaboom! This was the nearest explosion yet. Louder than the others, they could feel the force of the blast. This bomb must have landed in Regent's Park. Soil sprayed everywhere, pelting the gorilla. Poor Gertrude was scared out of her wits. She shrieked and shrieked, ee, 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 and she leapt about her cage wildly. No! Screamed the boy, terrified at what he saw. Instead of taking the raisin as he'd hoped, the gorilla had bashed her head so hard against the cage that the wire had buckled. Bash, bash, bash. Make us stop, pleaded Eric. Sid looked as worried as the boy. It was clear the old man had never seen the gorilla act like this before. It's just a bad storm, Gertrude, lied the zookeeper. Kaboom! Bash, bash, bash. Every time Gertrude leaped to the middle of a cage and grabbed onto the rope tied to the metal bars at the top of her enclosure and yanked it with all her might. What's she doing? Cried Eric. She's trying to escape, said Sid. The gorilla wrenched the rope so hard that the roof of the cage tore from 3 sides. Twonk, then it toppled into her cage. Clunk. It landed at an angle, providing a ramp for Gertrude to run up, her huge feet thudding on the metal. Clank, clank, clank. Sid and Eric looked on in a mixture of wonder and horror at the gorilla standing on top of her cage. She was perfectly silhouetted by the full moon as she beat her chest and let out an almighty howl. Can you see there? Can you see her at the top of her cage? So she's escaped. Kaboom! Eric and Sid could feel the heat from the bombs. It must have landed inside the zoo itself. A tall tree in the picnic area exploded into flames. Woof! The heat was enough to set you off your feet. Eric thought he was going to be burned alive. The zoo lit up red and orange and yellow and black, and smoke darkened the sky. Gertrude leapt down from the top of the cage and landed on the ground with a terrific thud thump. Eric stood frozen in fear as the creature lolloped over to him. She stared at him straight in the face, and he saw the look of terrible sadness in her eyes. Don't scream, hissed Sid, and don't make any sudden movements. The boy nodded slowly. If we keep still and quiet, it all should be fine. Gorillas were so strong they've been known to tear a man's arm clean off. Eric knew that, but Gertrude was his friend. There'd always been this special connection between the pair, even though the bars of the cage had been kept them apart. Until now. They were still there standing nose to nose. He could even feel her warm breath on his face. Eric felt a mixture of joy and fear all at once, but the joy was stronger than fear, and the boy smiled. Gertrude loved to copy Eric, and she smiled back, flashing her teeth and those long fangs on each side of her mouth. As Sid looked on and whispered, "Now be a good girl, Gertrude," the gorilla puckered up as if to give the boy a kiss. Eric had seen some films with the lovey-dovey bits. He'd known how grown-ups often close their eyes when they kiss, so he did the same. But it wasn't a kiss. It was a raspberry. A big, wet raspberry. For the second time that day, Eric had gorilla spittle all over his face, but he didn't mind one bit. He laughed and laughed and laughed, and the gorilla joined in too. "You two," chuckled Sid. "Now come on, Gertrude, let's get back inside of what you've got left of your cage." With that, the man took the gorilla by the hand. "Say good night, Eric," he said. "Good night, Eric," repeated the boy. "Wait, I am Eric." "I meant to say good night, Gertrude." "You great bozo. Good night, Gertrude." "That's better," replied Sid, looking up at the sky. Once again, the plains were nothing more than a distant hum. "Come on, old girl." Let me help," exclaimed the boy as he took Gertrude by the other hand. Then a gunshot rang out. Bang! The bullet whizzed past their heads. "Eek!" screamed Gertrude. The gorilla shook the pair from her hands and they tumbled to the ground. "Ugh!" they cried as Gertrude raced off into the darkness. "Ka-thump, ka-thump, ka-thump." She's gone. Chapter 9. Batter. The bombs might have stopped for the night, but the sound of gunshots startled all the animals in the zoo all over again. Roar, snarl, hoot, whoop, whoop, neigh. "What on earth do you think you're doing? What on earth do you think you are doing?" thundered Sid. Eric had never seen the old man so angry. He was shouting a short, squat figure in the distance who was now hurrying towards the pair. "Batter!" cried Sid. "Corporal Batter to you." Corporal Batter was the night watchman for London Zoo. He'd been made corporal in the First World War and had kept using his title. The rank was just above Lance Corporal, but below Sergeant. An achievement, of course, but only a certain type of man would want to keep reminding people of it every single day, 100 times a day for the rest of his life. A man like Batter, the corporal's job was to make sure the animals didn't escape from their cages during the night since the Blitz had begun. There was every chance that one of the bombs could land in the zoo, destroy the cages or the enclosures. Then you might very well have an escaped hippopotamus waddling down Oxford Street looking for a bargain, or a fugitive tiger leaping on the back of a double-decker bus, or a runaway rhinoceros charging in towards 10 Downing Street to knock on the door of the Prime Minister himself. When the Nazi bombing campaign began, London Zoo's resident vet, Miss Snarl, had put down every single venomous snake or spider. There was a real chance those creatures could find their way into the homes of Londoners and kill them just like the bombs. Imagine sitting on the toilet and a huge furry spider bites you on the bottom, or lying in bed at night and the snake slithers its way up your leg. Ooh. So Batter had been given the order that if a dangerous animal escaped from its cage during the night, he could shoot it on sight. The gorilla more than fitted this category. Sid and Eric were sure that Gertrude wouldn't hurt a flea. Well, that wasn't strictly true. If Gertrude found a flea in her fur, she would pluck it and eat it. But this gorilla was more interested in blowing raspberries than harming anyone. "I am..." huffed and puffed Corporal Batter as he finally reached the pair. The old soldier was out of breath. "Well, out with it, man," demanded Sid. "Well, spluttered Batter. "What's said Eric. "I think he's trying to get his breath back," said Sid. I've a stitch," he uttered, clutching his tummy. "Oh, boo-hoo," exclaimed Sid. "You could have killed us." "I was aiming for the monkey." "A gorilla isn't a monkey, it's an ape," protested the boy. "Same difference," snapped Batter. "No, it isn't. You can't shoot Gertrude. She's my friend." "I have my orders," declared Batter. With that, the old soldier cocked his rifle. "Click! Put that gun away, you fool," exclaimed Sid, pushing its nose down. "I will use my rifle whenever I want. It is me who is a war hero, remember that. Private Sidney Pratt, not you. You didn't last one day on the battlefields." Sid hung his head in shame. The man was right. His tin legs told that story. Next, Batter turned his attention to the boy. "And as for you, you're not supposed to be here. A child at the zoo in the middle of the night. It is forbidden." "It's my fault, Batter," said Sid. "He's family." "Corporal Batter, just wait until Sir Frederick Frown hears about this. Now stand aside. I have an escaped monkey to hunt. With that, he pushed the pair out of the way, marched off in the direction in which the ape had run. Eric looked at Sid. Tears welled in his eyes. He's not really going to kill her, is he? Is he? He's going to try, said Sid. Then we need to stop him, cried Eric. And we'll stop there. Next week I'll continue reading, and let's hope that they manage to catch the corporal in time before he catches up with Gertrude. Take care, Year 4. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.